Hi, Relaxed Recaps here. Today, I'm going to explain a Spanish crime adventure film called Plan de Fuga. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. A lieutenant briefs the officers at a police station to keep a watch on 3 Russian criminals, Luka, Damir, and Nikolai. According to him, these criminals killed roughly 50 citizens during the Yugoslav War, and these days they're orchestrating robberies everywhere they go. Their boss, Nikolai, is the head of the money laundering operations, and recently they've spent a lot of money on legal ventures, particularly in construction. But after the death of their fellow teammate who died of a heart attack, these criminals are looking for a good driver who can replace the dead burglar. Luka and Damir contact a man named Victor, and they are amazed that the guy has never been in jail. The duo assumes that if Victor is good at what he does, he must have only dealt with amateurs. Victor informs them that he served with the peacekeeping forces of Mostar, but this doesn't appear to be enough for the Russians. However, when Victor reveals the names of 2 people with whom he robbed a jewelry store, they seem to believe him. Thinking Victor might be the real deal, Luka and Damir take him to a club and introduce him to their boss, Nikolai. And while talking about the task at hand, Nikolai explains to him that all he needs to do is drill a meter of concrete, and he will be fairly paid for his time. Victor is startled awake when he hears a knock at the door. It turns out to be a stripper from the club named Helena, who is sent by the gang members for his pleasure. Helena claims that she was looking for him at the party, and adds that the men never turn her away. But the badass Victor shuts the door in her face and goes to sleep. Damir takes Victor to a new location the next day and confronts him about not accepting the woman he sent. Meanwhile, the police are tracking their moves and intend to follow them to the scene as well. Damir takes Victor to a container, and at that moment, they reveal that Victor must commit a robbery in an office building. With no options now, he starts to open a gap in the concrete floor from inside the container, and Luka regulates the temperature to cause the block to collapse. Meanwhile, the cops are waiting outside to intervene, but the lieutenant orders them to leave since no one can be arrested for robbing their own home. After the heist, Victor approaches Nikolai and Damir and expresses his dissatisfaction with making him work without the proper information. They give him some money for the job, but Victor is not pleased with the way this group works. But when Nikolai offers him the job of robbing the Swiss credit bank, where they can make $30 million in one scoop, Victor stops to think. Damir then pours gasoline all over the building and sets it on fire. When Victor returns to his house, he finds Helena waiting for him again. But he does let her in and informs her that if her boss wants to know about him, they should come themselves. Then, Victor lets the girls sleep on the couch and goes to his bed. The next morning, the lieutenant goes to the office building that the robbers burned down the day before. But upon reaching there, he discovers that the financial investigation unit is at the scene, trying to figure out whether or not the promoter was fabricating the accounts. The company was technically bankrupt, and they had an inspection scheduled for that week, but since everything has burned down, they will no longer be able to conduct an investigation. They question the company's legal counsel and realize that the robbery had been done after the fire was detected. This means that after the robbers had broken into the safe, they covered their tracks with the destruction caused by the fire, and before leaving, the lieutenant notices photos of different investigators on the wall, including Nikolai Korovin's. Next, the gang comes together to discuss their upcoming robbery in a tiny room. Apparently, robbing the Swiss credit bank is difficult because it has no branches and it contains $20 million only in cash and another $10 million in bonds. The bank manager and financial controller both have a set of keys to the vault. But since the vault has a delayed opening time of 20 minutes, they will need to carry out the robbery in a 40 cubic meter blind spot away from the alarms. Later that night, when Victor returns home, he finds Helena again, but this time she has a red suitcase with her. Victor invites her inside and offers her some food. And after some time, he hands her a gold watch and tells her that it contains all the information her boss is looking for. When Helena asks him what he is trying to say, Victor simply replies by saying that he wants the unnecessary spying to end. Somewhat confused by his behavior, Helena asks him why he doesn't like her, but Victor tells her it's nothing personal and asks her to leave. Next, Victor is seen making love with his wife Martha when a crying child interrupts them, and when he tells Martha that he must leave, she is clearly upset upon hearing this. Martha tells him that she needs him more in her life, but Victor responds that he's doing what he can and walks away. The gang meets again to plan the heist at the same location. Just then, their driver Rapido shows up and informs the boss that he's sick and wishes to leave. While they're talking, they suddenly detect movement outside, and before they know it, a squad of armed policemen bursts in and kills Luca on the spot. Demir kills one of the policemen while defending himself, although he's also hit by a shooter. On the other hand, Victor orders Rapido to leave through the door while he stays behind. While rushing for his life, Rapido notices Nicolay being shot by the cops. Victor does not put up any kind of resistance and surrenders to the police. Later, a police officer claiming to be from Interpol approaches him and asks who he is and why he has no information on him. But Victor is in no mood to respond to his questions. Just then, the interrogation is interrupted by the arrival of the lieutenant, who requests Victor's release and places a police badge on him. It turns out that Victor is actually an undercover police officer acting as a robber. He's informed by the lieutenant that one of the robbers who died was charged with war crimes, and that Interpol issued a search and capture order without exchanging any information. Later, Victor goes drinking with the lieutenant and asks whether he can help his friend Rapido, but the lieutenant advises him to turn Rapido in to avoid trouble in the future. Later, Victor goes to see Rapido, and it turns out that they were old friends, but Rapido is now a junkie who is constantly on drugs. Victor advises him to give him some information in exchange that can be used for a judge, but Rapido tells him that he has nothing. Now, Victor tries to find another thread to pull from. He finds a man who suffered a work accident in the missing building and requests that the financial investigator's file be delivered to his office immediately. Since all of the materials were burned and the Russians' accounts were transferred to another company, they could no longer do anything. However, the lawyer's office phone was bugged, and 2 hours after the Russians died, he was speaking to someone stating that the plan was still in place. Furthermore, Rapido informs them that the Russians paid him cash in exchange for an armored van. He hopes this information will be useful and states that there's something significant in the van for them. The next day, Victor asks the lieutenant to let him investigate how the Russians planned to escape the bank. However, the lieutenant informs him that the investigation has ended after all the people involved have died. Despite this, he permits Victor to conduct a discreet investigation into the robbery without becoming involved in foreign affairs. Victor goes to meet Rapido again, who shows him a picture of an Argentine beach where he intends to open a beach club. But Victor tells him that nobody will give him immunity, and if he wants to get a reduced sentence, he needs to reveal the location of the van. Later that night, Victor returns home and kisses his wife, but he's interrupted by a phone call. It turns out to be Helena, who wants her things back from his apartment. When Victor arrives, she shows the newspaper at him showing the fall of the Russian gangs. His attention is drawn to her injured leg, and he asks how it occurred. Helena reveals that the new owners of the club let the dogs go free and one of them bit her. Hearing this, Victor removes her pants and starts treating her wound. After some time, they end up getting intimate. Victor's phone rings while they're getting steamy, but he doesn't hear it. Later, when Victor comes to the hospital, the lieutenant tells him that his son has been admitted to the hospital due to mucus in his respiratory tract. After the surgery, the lieutenant informs him that Martha has gone out of town and has asked not to be called. Then he suggests Victor take a break from work for a few weeks, but he refuses. Victor goes to visit Rapido again and asks what new information he has, but Rapido remains silent. Victor states that he has no alternative but to surrender himself or take himself as a prisoner. Following their conversation, he gathers a group of cops and proceeds to the strip club to conduct a raid. He discovers Helena in a corner of the club dancing for a man, but she slaps him when she realizes that the man is a cop. When he returns, Victor asks the lieutenant to issue 3 expulsion orders for the new owners of the club. But to his surprise, the lieutenant informs him that he is suspended and asks for his badge and gun. Victor goes to see Rapido again, but finds him lying unconscious. When he finally comes to his senses, Rapido breaks down and starts crying. And when he cools down, Victor convinces Rapido to take him to the van, where he finds different items such as bank blueprints, a map, and a sensor. A few days later, Victor and Rapido dress up as security guards and enter the Swiss credit bank. After successfully knocking down security guards, they enter the bank full of people. However, no one seems to notice them until they point out that it's a robbery and show their weapons. When they find the controller and the bank manager, they order the rest of the group to leave the building. Next, they bind the director and the controller to the vault door with handcuffs. After that, they plant an explosive that will detonate if the vault is not unlocked within 20 minutes. Meanwhile, the first cop arrives and asks them to surrender immediately, but Victor calmly informs him that he does not feel threatened by them. After 20 minutes, the vault is finally unlocked and the two captives are allowed to leave. After entering the vault, they lock themselves inside and set a detonator on the outside of the door. In the meantime, the lieutenant arrives to take over the investigation. On the other hand, Victor uses the sensor to find the precise area that leads to a tunnel and gets prepared to drill the hole. Now, the lieutenant inquires about how to open the door, to which the director says that it's not possible without the keys. Inside the vault, the thermal lance produces so much heat that when the liquid oxygen freezes, Rapido starts to lose his senses. On the other hand, using the thermal camera, the cops can see a source of heat that is over 100 degrees. Seeing this, the bank manager thinks they are burning money inside the vault. He goes into a rage and sets off the fire alarm, soaking everyone in the water. However, this benefits those inside by cooling the space and allowing them to continue using the thermal lance. Moments later, Victor and Rapido go through the tunnel where they find the drilled holes. Then, after they blow up the tunnel, they must go outside where an ambulance is waiting for them. A while later, the two arrive at a jungle after successfully completing the heist and stealing enough money to last them for the rest of their lives. Rapido is thrilled and informs Victor that he'll open a restaurant in Argentina and a part of it will always be Victor's. But Victor assures him that he has always brought him good fortune and that he will be fine. Later, when Victor is at the airport, he sees the news of the fall of a Russian gang that is suspected of murdering a lawyer. In the meantime, the lieutenant comes over to him and hands back a badge while telling him that Internal Affairs have decided to not file a complaint. The film concludes with Helena arriving at the airport, where Victor hugs her and asks for forgiveness. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.